Emily Olzak. I am an admissions advisor in the Office of Admissions at NU. If you could, please type your name and the high school that you attend into the chat box. That's a great way for us to just see. And also, why don't you type what area of education you're thinking about? So name, high school, and what area in education that you think about, you're thinking of studying. Even if you don't know yet, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So
that's absolutely fine.
Yeah,
and I think there might have been a few transfer students, so you might talk about where you are currently, and hopefully you're living the same life as our current students in terms of being finished, because this was the hardest semester on record for all of us, and we're happy to be here.
Absolutely. So, okay, I'm letting a few more students in.
We'll let them in, and then you can get them typing away. Let me see what I know from the chat here. Sayville High School. Where's Sayville? Barker, I know. Williamsville South, I know. Oh, wow, French. And French and Spanish and French. You guys are, you're called unicorns because we so desperately need you in the work world. Math ed from West Seneca West. That's awesome. St. Mary's, assuming the one near us. Shannon, good childhood special ed. Oh, Long Island. All right.
Welcome.
That's awesome. Yeah. Who was I just talking with in East Rockaway? Superintendent there who is into special ed. He's just joined for our master's degree. We have an online special education program for an advanced, and he's joined our program as our advisory council. So we're excited to hear more about what's happening statewide, how things are different. We've learned a lot
of a virtual event, as you can hit a lot of people from all over.
All over the place. And you didn't even have to travel across state today. Exactly. That's good.
So I'm going to get us started. So again, anybody who just got in, who's just let in, if you could please put your name and your high school, and also what area of education you're thinking of studying. And also throughout this, we want to make this a very casual, easy conversation, right? So we have Dr. Foote here, who is the dean, on top of additional education students, current education students here. So we want to make this a conversation. Feel free to ask anything. If you aren't shy, you can, put your camera on and say it. Or if you are shy, please just type it in the chat box, and then we can just have a conversation that way. So Dr. Foote, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Fine. Hi, and thank you. I see Amaya Woods is from Amherst. You can go talk to Miss Ward and ask her about Niagara University and tell her you don't want to go to Canisius because that's where her husband works. Okay, but Miss Ward used to work with Niagara University. She was one of our social studies methods teachers. But I want to welcome you all here this evening, and I want to give a quick overview about the programs within the College of Education and some of the distinguishing features that we have. So as you compare us to other institutions across the state and around the world that prepare teachers, you actually have some important information that you may need to have that you wouldn't necessarily have even known to ask before you came. And I'm going to try to go through that somewhat quickly. I'm a fast talker, just ask our current students. But that doesn't mean that I won't answer any questions and go back over it. We'll do it 100 times if you want to. And then we're going to move somewhat quickly to the students. So these are students who were kind of sitting where you are last year, or actually may have been sitting on campus at that point in real chairs, or have, it was a few years back, but I think the best feeling about what programs at Niagara University are like and all about really comes from the students. So I thank them very much for joining us today, because as I said before, they could just be eating and watching Netflix and never getting out of bed right now because they're finished with their semester. And it is a beautiful day here on campus, but I think I'm the only one in this whole thing that's actually physically here on campus. So without further ado, I will jump in and share my screen. And you guys can keep typing throughout this all, but I will be struggling to see all of the faces and chats. So I'm going to let my students and Emily respond to some of the chat items, and then I will respond to the chat stuff when they're presenting. So here's my screen, and here's my PowerPoint, okay? First of all, I wanted to talk to you a little about the programs that we offer here at Niagara. So we try to make sure that every student leaves here with at least 2 certifications. And we do a lot of fancy dancy advisement so that some of ours can leave with 3 and 4 certifications when they graduate within 4 years. So, and some of you, I think, are from out of state, or it may even be from Canada. And so I want to make sure that we're all using similar language when you look at programs and compare them, because the certifications in New York State are slightly different than those in other states. That doesn't mean that we can't make transitions for you to what the other states have and what they need. It just means that you know what you're in. So first of all, we have a program that is called Early Childhood and Childhood Education. Students who are in this program end up with certification birth through grade 6. So early childhood certification in New York is birth to grade 2. And childhood education, it's grades 1 to 6. So you see that there's a 1st and 2nd grade overlap in those 2. The early childhood people like pre-K, the 3-year-olds, and pre-K, the 4-year-olds, and kindergarten, the 5-year-olds. And, you know, they think, oh, I really don't want to get much over 2nd grade. Whereas the childhood people are really interested in the grades 1 to 6 and moving up that far. Then we also have the childhood and middle childhood education program. So that is grades 1 to 9. So 1 to 6 again is childhood, and middle is grades 5 to 9. And then we have middle childhood and adolescence, grades 5 to 12. So middle childhood, grades 5 to 9, adolescence, grades 7 to 12. And then we have adolescence education as a standalone. So that's just grades 7 to 12. We have the opportunity to get special education on top of the childhood education. So you could be a grades 1 to 6 general ed and special ed teacher at the same time, or you could be an adolescence grades 7 to 12 general ed teacher and special ed teacher. And we also have teaching English to speakers of other languages, which we call Tesol. And that program is quite often misunderstood by students who are exploring their majors and thinking about what they may want to do, because they quite often think about it as bilingual education and that you have to be fluent in another language in order to do it. I saw a few of you up there were interested in Spanish and or French education, and you may want to think about double majoring with Tesol because you're going to cover a lot of the same requirements for the secondary French and Spanish as you would for teaching English to speakers of other languages. In a Tesol classroom, you may have 8 to 10 students in the class, all of whom don't have English as their first language, and none of whom are Spanish or French or some language that you took or know. They can come from anywhere in the world and they don't speak each other's language. The goal of the Tesol teacher is to help them continue to move on in the curriculum, move on in math, move on in science while they're learning English, and to transition as quickly as possible into the general education classroom so that they can learn in English. So it's really kind of exciting, and you learn a lot about cultures and things like that. And it is a hugely high demand field. We also offer, I was like hundreds and hundreds, but lots and lots of minors, and our students quite often will do 1, 2, and 3 different minors. Education students quite often like the literacy minor, they like the ASL, American Sign Language, Deaf Studies minor. We've had theater minors, dance minors, accounting minors, French minors, and basically anything that you think you might be interested in, we can find a minor for you. And so you may want to think about how you want to stretch and diversify yourself, because a minor is one of the ways that our candidates can differentiate themselves from other students who are applying for the same positions. When it comes to content areas, if you're going to be a middle childhood or secondary teacher, you're going to really want to, obviously, you're going to have a concentration major in the content that you're going to teach. So if you're going to be a high school chemistry teacher, you're going to concentrate in chemistry. If you're going to be a high school Spanish teacher, you're going to concentrate in Spanish. Social studies, and for those of you from Ontario, that is an amalgamation in the US of history, geography, psychology, sociology, economics, and political science. But we call it social studies here. Oh, and you have social sciences as well. English, math, bio, business, all different areas that we have. And for the students who are more interested in the special education, Tesol, or elementary level programs, we have a concentration that's in liberal arts. So you don't have to take all of your coursework in one single content area because you're going to be that kind of a teacher. The elementary teachers, for example, teach multiple subjects, and so they can choose from 3 different content areas as they move through. So then I'm moving on to some of the distinguishing factors for Niagara. One is that you become an education major as a freshman. So you begin the very first semester taking education courses and completing educational field experiences. Other programs in the state will admit you as a major, but you don't start taking education courses, and you certainly don't start taking field experiences until your junior year. The big problem with that is you don't want to get to your junior year and find out you don't really like this. And you may think in your heart of hearts that you really want to work with the little ones, or you really want middle school, or you really want secondary French, and I want to teach AP French. But you get out there in your freshman year and you actually do it, and you might change your mind. And what's nice about Niagara's program is for the first 4 semesters, it doesn't matter what kind of a teacher you want to be. You're taking the same education coursework as student in the early childhood program as you would in Tesol, as you would in special ed, as you would in high school. And so we put you out there in field experiences to try to see what we've been talking about in the classroom. How does it apply in schools? And you would look at it, and we ask you to reflect and say, am I liking this? Is this something that I want to do? Do I really like this age? And the early field experiences we call impact placements. And impact placements, you go out 2 hours a week to a placement that we find for you. And you might say, I really think I want kindergarten, and we'll find you a kindergarten, and you can go out 2 hours a week. In normal times, we provide the transportation, we find the spot for you, and you basically just go. We find a hole in your schedule so that this is the time that you would be out there doing it. The nice thing about the impact experience is you don't have to plan. You don't have, oh, what am I going to do? You walk in there, and sometimes you'll just be observing and seeing how the teacher runs things. You might walk around and help check on kids' work, or redirect them, or things like that. Or the teacher might say, why don't you take Johnny over here and work on this? Or why don't you work on this small group in the hallway, kind of thing. But they're planning it for you. So you don't have to worry about all of those kinds of things. And then you build up. So you would have 5 at least of those impact placements in your first 5 semesters of study. And we would encourage you to move around. So, you thought you wanted kindergarten, do 1 kindergarten, then do 1 pre-K, then let's try a 2nd grade. And if you're secondary, start with seniors, then go to middle school, try these different levels. But also try, you had an urban placement, try a suburban placement, try a charter school, try a Catholic school, try a rural school, so that you've had not only different levels, but different types of schools along the way, because the job market is phenomenal right now, and you will be able to say when you finish the program, this is the kind of school that I want to work at. And because you've had all of those experiences, you'll help make up your mind for that feeling for yourself. So after the impact placements, we move on to teaching assistantship. And it's at that point that you're going to be taking methods courses, where you learn how to do lesson plans. You learn how to do unit plans. You learn how to make assessments and implement them. And you'll have a mentor teacher in the school. You go out for about 3 hours a week then. And you will plan with that teacher and teach a minimum of 2 lessons and get the feedback from that teacher, so that when you get to your final semester, which is student teaching, it's not the first time that you taught the whole class. And in student teaching, you have one of 2 options. You have 2 7-week placements where you go out every day, all day, or 1 14-week placement if it's bridging 2 of your certification areas. We also have a number of study abroad opportunities. We have students who've gone to Italy to study early childhood. They go over the spring break. We've had students who go to the Netherlands to study New York State history. The Italy study program is early childhood philosophy and practice. And both of those are spring break trips. So you leave on the Friday before spring break. You go to whatever country it is, and you travel throughout that country and have different experiences. So for example, in Italy, they go to Rome, Florence, and Venice, and they go to a Montessori school, they go to a Reggio school and a Abruzzo school and an international school, and they also see Rome, Florence, and Venice in the process. And then they're home by the Sunday at the end of spring break and ready to start classes again. So they take the coursework here on campus. In the Netherlands, they were looking at New York State history, which, you know, if you remember your New York State history, that was, you know, we used to be New Netherlands and New Amsterdam and different things like that. And a lot of the US and especially New York government systems are modeled after the Dutch model. So you could study a lot about New York State history, which I think is the 4th grade curriculum now in New York State. We also have a teach abroad program in Thailand. So students go in the summer and can go for 2 or 3 months and teach and get paid in Bangkok, Thailand, with a number of other students from the US, Canada, and Australia. And lots of service opportunities and off-campus experiences that students do all of the time. A couple other distinguishing factors of the College of Education at Niagara University. One of them is within 1 year of graduation, all of our students for the last 3 years who wanted jobs as teachers had jobs as teachers. So if anybody in your life is telling you don't go into education because there's no jobs, that is the person that you do not take advice from anymore. And at least not about education. And so we've had 97% of our students who got jobs as teachers the first year. About 3% of them said, I'm going right on to grad school and finishing off that first. But 87% of them did actually teaching and grad school at the same time. You want to look at employment rates. One of the reasons we have such a high employment rate at Niagara University is because we have a phenomenal career services office that helps students from their first year and all the way through. But they host every year a teacher recruitment day for Western New York and for around the world. And they host HR directors from across the region who come here every year and say, after they've done their interview rounds, what were the questions that you asked? And we do interviews with the students, mock interviews, so they get their ums and the ahs out and remember what the right answer is to all of the questions, and they get in there. And quite often at the teacher recruitment days, our students will come back with, you know, 2, 3, 4 offers from anywhere in the world. And I'm jealous thinking, oh, wow, you're going to Hawaii and you just got a $45,000 contract to go to Hawaii and they're going to fly you there to be a teacher. Like, that would be a cool thing for a couple of years. You also want to look at other programs and look at their certification exam pass rates. So in New York State, there's a minimum of 3 state tests. They're not Niagara University tests. They're state tests that you have to pass in order to become certified as a teacher in New York. You want to look at those pass rates and say, are they high? But are they all 100%? Because if you look at a certain schools that I will not name, but you can find out, and they say 100% across the board, what they're doing is not allowing you to graduate until you pass the test. And Niagara University doesn't do that. We have extremely high pass rates, but if you're taking 3 tests and you fail one part of one of the tests, and I hate to say fail, like you're 1 point off, and we hold you up from graduation for another 6 months until you pass that exam. not only do you not have your bachelor's degree, but you cannot substitute teach in many districts without that bachelor's degree, even substituting as an uncertified sub. And you can't apply for other types of jobs that require bachelor's degree as the minimum qualification. So we don't drop you though if you don't pass the test the first time. We stick with you, we tutor you, we provide supports so that you do pass it the second time around. But you can look at performance data, which we are all required to nationally and statewide show on our websites. So I think in terms of points of distinction for Niagara, one of the things is you want to know is we bring you in as freshmen and you start taking coursework as a freshman and you start doing field experience as a freshman. You learn it that way so that you know, do you not want to be this kind of a teacher or do you not want to be a teacher at all? And if you don't want to be a teacher, that's okay, because we want to get you finished in 4 years and out and doing the thing that you are passionate about. I don't want you to be a miserable person doing a job that you don't like for the rest of your life, because you've all had a teacher like that at some point, and they didn't graduate from Niagara under my watch, I promise. And you can get those field experiences and move around to find your passion area, because we have a lot who come in and say, oh, I want to do the babies. I love kindergarten. That's what I want to do. Well, after one day in December in a kindergarten where you spent the morning taking gloves off and spent the afternoon putting gloves on and you never even got one other thing done, you might not like that. Some of you might love it. Some of you might love middle school and you don't even know it. And some of you would rather walk barefoot across coals than go into a middle school. And we want you to be the teacher who is going there because you love it every single day. We have high employment rate, we have high certification pass rates, and we offer lots and lots of support. So I'm going to move it over into speaking with our students, but I want to sort of cap this off, and I'll provide my information and my assistant dean, Tammy Bruno's information, so that if you have questions, one of the things I want you to test is, you know, I can give you a million facts about the College of Ed at Niagara and why I think we're the best. But it's a feeling. And one of the things you're going to get from that feeling is the responsiveness. So you have questions, and you should have questions. Ask us and see how quickly we get back to you, how we fully and clearly respond to those kinds of questions. And I encourage you to test us out that way. So that being said, I'm going to stop sharing and then introduce you to our students. Emily, before I do that, are there any questions that I should be answering first?
Not right now. No, you are all set.
I've answered everything before.
You did perfectly.
Yeah. So I'm going to start with Kelsey. Kelsey, if you can introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, what's your major, and where you are in the program for right now.
So like Dr. Foote said, my name is Kelsey and I am a senior math education major right now. I'm from Oswego, New York, which is about 3 hours east of campus, kind of near Syracuse. And I am a senior, so I am done with all of my traditional coursework and I will start my student teaching development on January 11th. So coming up quick.
Oh, Lord. All right. Thank you, Kelsey. Sam, tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. Hi, I'm Sam. I am a sophomore double major, so I am the birth through 6, and I'm also Tesol that we touched about a little bit. So if you have any questions about Tesol, please leave them in the chat because I will hopefully be helpful. It's a little bit confusing sometimes. I am from Alden, New York, which is right outside of Buffalo, and I'm a sophomore, so still doing impact observations right now. That's about it.
Thank you. And how about you, Rebecca?
Hi, so I'm Rebecca. I am also a math education major and I have a minor in statistics. I'm a sophomore from Orchard Park, New York, which if you don't know, that's where the Bills Stadium is, so it's kind of crazy. But like Sam, I'm also just doing my education impacts right now.
Great, thank you. And I would love if each of you could tell me about one of your most exciting field experiences, where you were and something that you learned or liked from that experience, or even learned and said, you know what, I don't want to do this. I will start with Kelsey because she's got more experiences.
One of my favorite placements that I did for two different reasons. I have two favorites. My first favorite was a placement I did at the Tuscarora Nation, and that was my first placement in the College of Ed my freshman year. And that was exciting because it was something I never would have expected to be able to get to do. And so we spent 6 hours, so it was double the time of an impact placement because we also did class at the Tuscarora Nation. And that was a completely different set of students and demographics than you would ever consider yourself getting to experience when you're a senior in high school, as I was. And then my second most exciting placement was my first teaching assistantship, which is when you get to actually start doing lessons. And I was at Gaskell Prep, which is a middle school in Niagara Falls. And I absolutely love middle school. If I could do 7th and 8th grade for the rest of my life, I would sign me up. Let's do some algebra. I love the kids, but I also really love Niagara Falls. And so that one was exciting because it connected all the parts of Niagara. So it was the Niagara mission and the service of the Vincentian mission, but it was also everything we talk about in class. So I was also taking a middle school philosophy, childhood and philosophy for my methods class. So it kind of brought everything together. And once you get to your junior year, you'll start to see the pieces fall into place. You've started to do a lot of different isolated classes and placements, and that's when they really start to mesh together and you can put out your first unit plan. You can make your first full lesson. You can actually teach one of those lessons, and it becomes much more tangible.
Thank you. Sam, how about you? Where was your first placement?
My first was Maple Ave. It was so cute. It was like hands down. I mean, I've only had 2, but that one was awesome. I would love to teach there one day, but
What did you teach with at Maple? What grade?
I was kindergarten with Miss Campbell.
Oh,
I don't know if I would do kindergarten. Yeah, but Miss Campbell was awesome. So it was a great experience overall. And I actually had my first day of subbing today. So I'm back at my home school, my primary school that I went to actually, and I was super nervous. And then I was like reflecting on my time with Niagara and my placements. And I was like, oh, I've like basically done half of the stuff I'll be doing. So it gave me a lot of confidence going into it, knowing like I've had experience in the classroom. I'm not just being thrown into the wind here.
Yeah.
So that was really reassuring to know like, okay, I know what I'm doing like a little bit. I will not be struggling. And I have like the background knowledge and the experience to definitely help me out here. So that was super awesome going into that experience today.
My husband is one of those weird middle grades teachers, but he's a 6th grade teacher at Maple.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and both of my boys went to Maple Avenue, so I love that. And I love that both of you had a Niagara Falls City placement, because a lot of students are afraid of that. Oh my gosh, are there going to be metal detectors and things like that? And it's like, are you kidding? These are the people who love it. And those kids come into school. Many of those kids, if they made it to school, they made it because they got themselves there, and they just want to be loved by you. And so it's phenomenal that you've had, some really exciting placements there and enjoyed them. How about you, Rebecca? Where was your first one?
My first one was at Niagara Falls High School. I was in a 9th grade class. So like there was like, they did have a problem. So like one day there was metal detectors and I had to like go through with the students. So like coming from Orchard Park, that was a little bit weird for me, but it was interesting to see something completely different from what I grew up knowing. Niagara Falls High School was larger than my high school, which I have a large school. So that was also shocking to me. So it was a little bit different, but it was exciting to see something that was different, just because then I could learn from it. And I realized that like that was like my first step in realizing middle education was the place for me. Right. And then my second placement was at Gaskell Prep, actually, like Kelsey's. And I remember there was one day my teacher had a meeting during the class, and there was like a couple problems where the sub wasn't in. So I was kind of like in charge of delegating what the students were supposed to do that day, and I was their resource if they had any questions. And even in my second semester as a freshman, I felt comfortable enough to do that based on the education I learned in class as well as what I was observing in the classroom.
That's phenomenal. Yeah. And I think the feeling you get at both Gaskell and Niagara Falls High School is it's different, but the faculty and the staff there and the students are just so warm and welcoming, and it's exciting. And I said, when students are afraid of, oh my gosh, I might have to do a placement at Niagara Falls High School, I love to tell them, I have two beautiful sons who I love dearly, and that's where they are. I wouldn't send them there if I didn't think it was safe, believe me. And I wouldn't put any of you guys there either. I'll walk in there and hold your hand and introduce you to 16 teachers. So, I love hearing about this. I wonder if any of you want to share, how did you decide that Niagara was the right place for you?
My senior year of high school, I first knew Niagara was the right choice professionally because of both our accreditation, which very few schools have in this area, let alone the state, and the direct admit with early internships. That sealed the deal. As Dr. Foote will say, most schools, you don't find that until at least junior year. So looking at schools that were other schools more locally to me, those are the first things that I was weighing, because I think very practically, type A, write down a checklist. And so that sealed the deal right off the top. And then the next factor is that student life and mission. And so Niagara centered upon serving other people, specifically those in poverty. And so I liked the idea that while I was spending 4 years learning and intellectually bettering myself, we would simultaneously be bettering the community as a university whole. And so it's not something that just I would do on my spare time, but I would join the likes of students who also want to welcome into that mission. So that's the second factor. And then the third factor is all the rest of the fun stuff. So I had toured Niagara and our dining hall was still under construction. There were people wearing hard hats walking through, but when I became a freshman, everything was brand new. The dorm life, I'm now a CA, the clubs that you can get involved in, things like admissions, those are the last pieces that really sealed the deal. So for me, it first came down to those early placements and accreditation, and everything else just kind of fell in line.
Awesome. How about Rebecca? Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, so I originally had no intention of ending up at Niagara. I did not know that it was a school for education. My mom actually pointed out I was so set on going to a state school. And that it was like, I was growing up and I was like, oh, they have a great education program. Like, you're going to love it there and everything. And I toured it and I was kind of underwhelmed. It was like overhyped up, in my opinion. And even then, it was one of those schools where you don't start, I believe, like until your junior year. And then my mom forced me to come to Niagara, and I was like, I don't know, like, because she went to Canisius. So I was like, why'd she even point it out to me? But I got there and they were like, your education program, you get in right away. It's direct admit. You start in a classroom, which was really appealing to me because I thought that you didn't start until your sophomore or junior year, because that's what most of the schools had. So to see something out of the ordinary where you start right away, and like Kelsey said, all of the extracurriculars and the opportunities that I had really fell into place. And it became the school that I wanted so much that I was like kind of in denial about it, out of the school that I thought I was going to end up at. So much so that until I almost played soccer at that school, until that didn't fall into place, that I knew Niagara was truly the right decision for me.
Awesome. Thank you. How about you, Sam?
Yeah, similar to Rebecca, I was not dead set on Niagara. I was actually committed to a school in Virginia up until the July of my senior year. And when I realized, I went to a Niagara open house during my senior year, and I was like, wow, it's beautiful here. Like, the campus is absolutely stunning. Like, Tammy Bruno did one of her spiels about the education program, and I was like in awe of it. And like Rebecca, I was just so dead set on what I thought I wanted. And I found out about the Tesol program here, and I was like, wow, that's right up my alley. I would love to be a dual major, like all those opportunities. I love learning about culture and just language. I think it's fascinating. So when I found out that we have that and can double major, I realized, man, I should really go to Niagara. Like, this education program is unlike anything I've ever seen. And I'll get out in 4 years, no matter what. I can get my dual major. I will have all these teaching opportunities because of my involvement with the community, and just the opportunities they provide in general throughout your 4 years here are truly just like abundant. So that was super exciting for me. So I changed my mind very late in the game, but I made it here and I love it so far.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Sam. You guys all triggered some, I take a lot of notes to make sure. One of the things, kind of a distinguishing factor for Niagara University is our very, very high 4-year graduation rate, one of the highest in Western New York. And that's really important when you're comparing apples to apples. So I think Rebecca said, oh, I thought I was going to be at a state school, because families will think about the cost of tuition. And that's usually their number one, oh my gosh, you can't even think about a place like Niagara because that's the sticker price looks scary. One, nobody pays the sticker price. Very much, almost nobody anyway. And two, think about the 4-year graduation rate, because if you're going to have to go a 5th or a 6th year, one, you're still paying tuition for those 5th and 6th years, and two, you're not out in the job market working, getting a salary back at the same time. So in the long run, it costs more. And what you'll find out if you take the time to work with us and you take the time to work with Katie in the financial aid office is that we are extremely comparable in terms of price to a state school. But not only does Niagara University have one of the highest 4-year graduation rates in Western New York, the College of Education at Niagara University, so our teacher ed programs, has the highest 4-year graduation rate at Niagara University. So our students get finished because we really look at, and Tammy Bruno is a great name to bring up for all of this, because she's going to look at your AP courses. She's going to look at Ivy courses, community college courses, New Step courses, any of those kinds of things. So we make sure you don't get to your senior year and find out you forgot to take a course. We also have a number of 4+1 and 4+2 graduate programs. So you can start taking grad courses in your junior year if you want. And you may finish up a whole semester of your graduate program before you graduate as an undergraduate, which means you might only have 2 semesters left to finish everything up. And we have our own dedicated certification officer, Beverly Eiler. Kelsey has come to know her probably fairly well. Sam and Rebecca will come to know her more along the way. She makes sure that you're taking the certification exams at the exact point when you're ready. She shows right up at your class and hands you a voucher for taking those exams. She helps you get certified in New York State, sometimes within 24 hours of completing your program of study. And she also knows how to help you get certified in any other state and any other country, for that matter, in the world. She's also our historian, and you can contact her and say, I can't remember the name of my cooperating teacher from 1972. I think it was out in Western Niagara County, and she can look it up and figure that stuff out for you, because you can get your letter of reference back. We have our own dedicated field experience office. So you go in there and you say, look, on my schedule, I have Tuesdays from 12 to 2 open. I need a field experience then. And they will find the placement for you. You don't go and knock on Aunt Lisa's door and try to say, I'm going to be teaching in can I work in your building kind of thing. We'll find those things for you. And as you get further along, you may want to identify field experiences closer to home. We have students who complete their student teaching in Syracuse and in Rochester, and we have supervisors out in those areas. And we got somebody in Chicago right now doing a student teaching field experience. As long as you're doing well in your program all the way along, and we're not really worried about you, and you know how to do things like Zoom and Google Meet, we can still contact and communicate with you. You can go home and student teach. Have mom help you do your laundry and feed you while you're doing your student teaching. And lastly, the facilities. I think you guys talked about, you came to campus and you looked at it and you see how beautiful it is overlooking the Niagara Gorge. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's beautiful. But the College of Education facility is my favorite place here on campus. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased, but we have right within the College of Education, we are in the academic complex right in the center of campus. You can come in normal non-COVID times. We have a Tim Hortons in the first floor. We have a family literacy center right here in our own building where kids from the local community who've been identified by their teachers as having reading challenges can come in, and our students do diagnosis and intervention with them. And we have state-of-the-art classrooms with smart boards and whiteboards and sets of iPads and different things like that for students to learn and practice on. And the second floor has our certification office, our field experience office, Tammy Bruno, who's sort of like the school counselor for everybody. And then on the third floor is the faculty offices. So unlike some institutions where you don't even know what building you're going to and how would you ever get there, and I'm going to have to park 7 miles away to get on there, you can come to campus and enter the College of Education in the academic complex and sometimes never leave the building all day long. And it's, you know, it's just a really, really interesting place. In the Family Literacy Center, we have a whole library of children's literature. And in the university library, we have a teaching studio. And in that teaching studio, we have all of those kinds of things that a teacher needs and they use in the the main office that most of us never got into when we were actually kids in school. Things like 3D printers and sewing machines and printers that print out the letters that go on bulletin boards. And we have teacher textbooks and manuals and puppets and all of the kinds of things that you might need to take out and borrow in order to do the work and make really fun and kind of creative lessons and things like that. Chloe asks about the Accuplacer exam. Chloe, in New York State, anybody who has national accreditation, which pretty much every program needs to get, there is a requirement that we gather at some point before you go out, scores on standardized tests that focus on reading, writing, and mathematics. So if you've taken the SAT or the ACT, you know that Niagara is a test optional school. So you don't have to take those and you don't have to submit your scores. But in order to get into the university and into the College of Education. But if you don't submit your scores to us at some point, we will have to have you take the Accuplacer, which is pretty much like the SAT, only it's cheaper. In fact, it's the same company that makes the SAT, and we offer it here. And so we will follow up with you and have you take that exam. It takes you about an hour and a half, and we'll set up a time with you to do that. What we want to do is make sure that you will have the knowledge that you need to pass the certification exams that you're going to take later. And we need to have those scores as something we report to our accreditors, but we don't use it only for that reason. We want to use it in support of you as the student to say, look, here's the area of math that you have a little challenge on. If you're going to have to take the math content specialty test, here's some things we want you to study, and just go online and look at. Which education major is Niagara's most popular? I'm going to tell you the elementary, which kind of has is the birth to 6, the early childhood, and the 1 to 6 special ed are our 2 largest programs. At the secondary level, social studies is usually our most popular, but for the most part, the education courses are blended. So you're going to take them, if you're in the secondary program, the social studies students are taking their methods courses with the math students and the science students and the English students and those kinds of things. You do have one methods course that's just in your content area. The students are fun and the methodologies are intermixed across all of the board. So rather than saying, what education major is the most popular, what I would say is, in addition to thinking about what ages of kids that you're drawn to, that motivate you, like that you would want to just sit down and have a chat with. So some people like, with 5-year-olds, I could have the most fun conversation for hours on end. And, Kelsey might be thinking with 13-year-olds, that would be fun. And I would say no, but for Kelsey, it really is. You think about the age level, and then you want to think about the content that you love. My husband teaches English and social studies, but he is like this World War II buff. And, you know, I have to go and just close my eyes and close my ears after a while because he will talk about World War II. But when you love something that much and you're so excited about it, the students that you're teaching love it. And so if you like that age range and you like to, you know, build relationships and know the students, and you love what it is you're talking about and making it interesting to other people, then it's the right thing for you. And if we have that, we're going to help you develop that passion for you. We always say that about our advisors too. Our faculty are really good at what they do, but they're also good at being advisors to say, you know, I might be really happy about teaching social studies, being a high school social studies teacher, but I'm going to ask you about what makes you happy. And I'm going to point you in the direction and get you mentorship for the thing that you want. And somewhere here, we have that kind of mentorship, and we will line you up with the right people.
Dr. Foy, you've answered a lot of questions, but I have a couple that I wanted to just hop in that I usually hear from a lot of students. So even though the students didn't, you know, say it in the chat, but can you talk a little bit about, like, what if a student starts off as a biology major, right? They come to us and their bio or their criminal justice. How easy is it to transfer into education?
Well, if you do it by your junior year, before the start of your junior year, we can probably figure out how that's going to be. So if you were a bio major and you're thinking you want to be a bio teacher instead of a, you know, pre-med kind of thing, that's probably going to be very easy for us because your bio courses are going to come right over and count toward that. We'll just double you up on your education and you'll have more field experience requirements. If it's something like sociology or psychology or criminal justice that you start out in, or even academic exploration, it will be very easy, even up until the late dates, to get you into an elementary program, because just part of your gen ed will say, I've got a couple courses in this and a couple courses in that. It's very hard to move from criminal justice into being a high school chemistry teacher. So it really depends on how far of a stretch you're going to want to go. But for the most part, up until your junior year, you can transition.
And I know you touched on earlier about the 4+1 programs and, you know, earning your master's degree. When should a student bring that up to their advisor, or even the study abroad as well? Like, should they have those conversations early on, or what do you suggest?
Well, early on in your freshman year, when you meet with your advisor, you may want to bring up the study abroad. Just plant the seed, I'm interested in it. Usually it's going to be the end of your sophomore year or your junior year that you actually do study abroad, whether it's the study abroad just on spring break or whether it's a whole semester abroad. And we have some excellent opportunities for that as well. But by planting the seed in your freshman year, your advisor can think ahead to which and where that hole might be that allows you to go and do that study abroad experience. In terms of the 4+1 or the 4+2, it's usually the end of the sophomore year and early in the junior year where we start to talk about what do you want to do with your master's degree, and do you want to start working on those kinds of courses now as part of your undergrad, or what is that going to be? Students quite often will come in as freshmen and say, I want to get 8 different certifications as freshmen. And what we tell you is, let's concentrate on a couple of those. And then remember, you need a master's degree, and that master's degree should lead to an additional certification. So let's leave something for there so you don't have to do everything now.
We appreciate the eagerness, though. They're excited.
Yeah. We expect the eagerness, but then we tame it down a little bit. Like, you can't be every kind of teacher in just 4 years.
That's a typical
for
teacher.
Up to 12, how many students on average are in a classroom? You mean students here on campus or students in the schools? I'm going to guess students in the schools, and I'm going to say about 25 students, 20 to 25 students in a high school math class. But here on campus, I think probably some of your largest classes for the students has been about 25 students. Whereas as you get up further into your program of study, especially in the secondary programs, you might have some courses where there's 2 or 3 and some where there's like 10 of you, and that's about it. You'll get to know your faculty and they'll get to know you.
Whether that be good or bad.
Whether you don't get to skip class, they'll call you.
Exactly.
Yeah, I had a class this semester of 8 people, and we all have a group chat and we all ask each other about the homework questions and everything like that. And we became a really tight-knit group over the course of the semester. And this is just a 200 level math class. Like most of the people in that room weren't math majors, but some were math education, some were elementary education with the math track. And so it was just like a fun, interesting dynamic because some people love math with their whole heart. And some people were like, I just need one more class and this is what it's going to be.
Yeah. Well, and
That
I
would
think
be me.
Niagara did a very good job of the pivot. And especially the education courses. You know, we don't like the idea of teaching to you online just as much as you don't like necessarily the whole idea of your life being from your bedroom or from your dorm room. We had a lot of classes face-to-face, especially up until mid-November, where students could come in and they were having classes, they were socially distanced. But in certain situations, we had to move to being online. If one student tested positive in that class, then the class was online for quite some time, and students could do hybrid and different things like that. But using Zoom and Google Meet and Big Blue Button, people were able to have conversations with one another just like we're doing here. We could go into breakout rooms and chat rooms and work on projects and do things. So it's not just your faculty lecturing at you and showing you the PowerPoint, which you would fall asleep if you were in a physical classroom. They were interesting and engaging. And I was really proud of how quickly even some of our most veteran faculty who were so afraid of the technology picked that all up and were ready to go because they know what good teaching looks like and what it means. And so they were struggling and to find out, how am I going to do this? I need to put them in groups. How am I going to put them in groups if they can't get within 6 feet of each other and take off their mask? Well, we're going to do it online. So it was fun.
Any other questions, guys? I thank you for even, putting these in the group.
Mhm.
When should be sent? Oh, okay, I can answer that. So any AP, IB courses, or even I know a lot of you guys take dual enrollment, maybe through GCC or MCC or, and CCC, you can submit those to the Office of Admissions. So once you receive like your AP scores, College Board, you can directly send them. IB as well, any dual enrollment courses, you would get an official transcript from the college once the year is over, the semester is over, and then you would be able to submit those to our office. We have them on file, and then when you meet with your advisor, they would have all that information for you. So then that is when, Dr. Foote said earlier, where Tammy Bruno will sit down and see, okay, you've taken AP history or an AP English class, those classes will count and cross off certain things. So you can submit those at the end of the semester when they're all completed.
Yeah, and even if you don't have your scores back yet, and we're going through advisement and things like that, if you tell us, look, I took this course, I think it's going to count, especially when you're coming in as a freshman. There are enough courses left on that whole curriculum card that you're going to need to take that we will work around it. We don't get the highest four-year graduation rate by making you take classes twice.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anything else, folks?
I have one thing actually to add real quick. We
Yeah,
talked
great.
about the price of Niagara earlier, and I don't know if someone addressed this when I was considering Niagara, but it would have made it, I think, a lot like a quicker decision for me. But the Teach grant is awesome. It is a government grant, and it's up to $4,000 every year, and they just give you that money back. So I just use it every year to put towards my tuition in a different account. But if you are kind of on the fence about what program to get into for education and you aren't really like sure, the Teach grant goes to high need areas. So special ed, I think math, Tesol. So I get it for Tesol. You can see more online. I think it's through like the same page like FAFSA, that area. But the Teach grant, if you look it up, super helpful, and it might help you make a decision just a little bit quicker. So definitely look into that because it makes a big difference in tuition costs for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's great information. Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks, Sam. Any other questions, guys?
Well, I'm going to say, please, if you're in the vicinity at all, please come onto campus, drive around. We are still giving tours, and Emily can help you with that. And we know how to do this in socially distant, COVID-friendly ways. We would love to meet with you personally. I would love to meet with you. Tammy Bruno would love to meet with you personally, whether you're physically here on campus and you want to come to my office. I know how to stay socially distant. I haven't shaken anybody's hand since March, but I can answer any questions that are specific to you and the questions that your families may have. And we'd love to do that. The other thing that would be an option in the spring, if you'd like to do it, and socially distant is fine, is shadow a student for a day. So we can find a student who's in the major you might be interested in, and then you can shadow them from 6 feet away for the whole day and find out what the day in the life is like. Because as I said earlier, I can give you all the facts about how we're the greatest in the world, but it's a feeling, and we want you to have that feeling and to feel like you fit here. And if you have any questions about it, to be able to answer that. And that comes from being here. So if you can get here, we'd love to see you. And I live a mile from here, so I'll be here all break too.
Yeah, I put in the chat box, I put our website for set up a visit. So again, we are offering in-person visits. We also offer so many virtual events just like this one. So if you wanted to hop on even just to see a different major or financial aid night, nursing had a big event last night. Financial aid also had an event last night. So we're constantly adding new events. So, keep checking that calendar. And again, plan a visit on campus. You would get a tour. And again, in the spring, we are hoping to have things back to normal, maybe, and being able to have more personalized days for you guys as well.
Thanks.
Anything else, guys? Thank you so much, everybody.
You guys can go to dinner.
Dinner time, exactly. My
Yay.
stomach's growling.
Well, I wish you all well through the holiday season. Stay safe, stay socially distant. I know everybody's been telling you that, and to our students, thank you very much for helping us out. And please refresh, rejuvenate, enjoy this time away from us, especially you, Kelsey, going out there to student teach in the spring.
Yes, you deserve it, all of you.
Take your vitamins, girlfriend.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.